Hello, welcome to another episode of Camp, the Coaching and Mentoring Playbook. This week, I had the honor of having two Boston legends on the podcast. We had Coach Jeff Gibbons and wrestler Quinn Bowles. Now, Coach Jeff Gibbons is currently at Boston Latin School. He has been teaching there for quite some time. He's been coaching there for over 20 years. He was a state champ back in his day at Boston College High School, and then he went on to wrestle Division I at Boston College back when they had a program. Quinn is one of his most talented wrestlers. Quinn started wrestling in 7th grade. He is a 3-time Division I state placer, a Division I state finalist this season. He's a 3-time All-State qualifier. He's an All-State placer. And then he was top 8 at the New England tournament. Now, many people don't know how maybe Massachusetts does their state tournaments, or New England does. So there's 3 divisions. If you place so high in that, you get to go wrestle at the All-State tournament. And then if you place high enough at that, you'll get to wrestle at the New England tournament with all the other New England state placers. So it's quite a ladder at the end of the season. Quinn had a really great season. He's had over 100 career pins. So when I tell some of my friends back in Ohio, just that stat alone is pretty shocking. Now I'm really excited because Quinn is going on to wrestle in college at Case Western Reserve, which is a Division III school in Cleveland. It's one of the best academic places you could go in the country. He's going to be joining a former BLS wrestler, Alex Green Barrios there, who was a high school teammate of his, and now they're going to be college teammates, so that's very exciting. So this podcast, we cover a number of topics about Boston wrestling and just wrestling culture in general. We get to hear from someone who's currently in battle. He's wrestling in high school, wrestling in college next season, and then Coach Gibbons, who's been around quite some time. Boston Latin is one of the public schools in the city of Boston. It's a tested school. So in Boston, in middle school, if you choose to, you can take an exam and then you can either end up at Boston Latin School, O'Brien, or you can end up at Boston Latin Academy. Now, BLS is the oldest high school in the country. I always like to laugh and joke when I talk to friends of mine from outside the state that my wrestlers at BLS, they will be sharing an alma mater with Benjamin Franklin as well as a number of other, very famous historic American figures. So I hope you enjoy and get to learn a little bit more about Boston Latin School, some of the wrestling here in the city, and just engaging in wrestling conversation at a national level.
Welcome to Camp, the Coaching and Mentoring Playbook. I am the host, Shepard Vargo. You are on WBCA 102.9 FM Boston, Boston's community radio station. And today I am joined by 2 local Boston wrestling legends, in my opinion. I have Coach Jeff Gibbons. I have Quinn Bowles, who is just finishing up his senior year of wrestling. I'll give a little bit of your credentials, a little bit of the backstory here. Now, Quinn's going to go off and wrestle at Case Western in Cleveland next year, which is back in my hometown, which is one of the best schools in the country, as well as having a good wrestling program there. Quinn, you've had over 100 career pins in high school, which is absolutely crazy. You're a 3-time D1 state placer, a state finalist, which was really exciting this year. A 3-time All-State qualifier, an All-State placer, and top 8 in New England. Very incredible career here. Coach Jeff Gibbons, state champ at Boston College High, right? And then a D1 wrestler at Boston College. So you stayed in that Boston College little connection right there, which is awesome. Now, the sad part about Boston College is that they lost their program, as well as Boston University. So we've lost 2 D1 programs here in the city. And of course, I know the 3 of us would love to see some more programs pop back up. Mm-hmm. So I'll start with you, Coach. What did wrestling give you? What is something that from back then that you took away from wrestling that's been a reason why you've kept it in your life?
I mean, that's a good question. I think wrestling, like no other sport that I, did growing up, gave you a chance to, as close as possible, control your own destiny. Grew up playing soccer, baseball, basketball, team sports. So, you have less control of the outcome. I actually thought I was going to be a basketball player in college. I went to sleepover basketball camp, and I remember getting a letter from one of the coaches there saying that he thought if I kept working at it, I could be a D3 basketball player. And so that's how I kind of trained. And then 2 things happened when I went to BC High. First, I saw the size of the kids there. And my older brother had just joined wrestling. BC High started a program in 1988, I believe. First year was kind of a JV hybrid year. And then my freshman year was its first varsity year, and my older brother made the sales pitch is that, you could probably beat up most kids that weigh about 110 pounds. And so, I went for it. I decided to, wrestle, probably because my older brother was on the team. He wasn't a great wrestler. He started as a junior in high school, but, it was pretty cool to be on a high school kind of varsity team with my older brother.
That's awesome. And you've been coaching at Boston Latin School for how long?
I think my first year was like 2004. I could be wrong. When I came back from California, I got into coaching at BC High, and I was an assistant coach. And I would work in the weight room in the summertime there, and Boston Latin would bring their athletes, a lot of football players, but they would bring a lot of their athletes to BC High to do this strength and speed camp that Mark Conroy ran called Peak Performance. And so John McDonough was the athletic director, also the football coach, and he would just kind of pal around, but I guess he would see my work ethic as a 22, 23-year-old kid, just, running these drills and being in the weight room, being on the track. And he called me and he said the wrestling coach was going to move on and the position was going to open up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when I go to tournaments to watch the BLS wrestlers, because obviously I've got to know a lot of them over my time here in Boston, I always see you, one, either coaching, super engaged, loving to talk wrestling, or you're reading a book, which I absolutely love because then your BLS wrestlers are also reading books. I see them reading books from time to time too, which is important. And that's because you're also a teacher at the school, correct?
Correct. I teach 8th grade English. 1 year I taught Brit Lit as well, juniors. But yeah, it's funny. I don't know where we kind of started doing that. I just started bringing the pop-up chair. And I think for my own longevity and my own sanity, wrestling tournaments, you don't get great seats anywhere. You can't see everything you want to see. There's definitely wrestlers. I'll put the book down and go, go track and watch. But it caught on. Then our associate head coach, Ray Berry, he started bringing his chair and his book. And for the most part, we're reading Westerns. We're reading kind of frontier fiction. I think complements our sport, this, manifest destiny kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Louis L'Amour.
Correct. We read a lot of Louis L'Amour. We both were reading John Williams' Butcher Crossing at Allstate.
His memoir is incredible as well. I don't know.
Louis L'Amour?
Yeah, his memoir is great.
So I picked it up at a used bookstore, or I picked up one of those things that has kind of those snippets of like his quotations and. No, but he lived a good life. He traveled. He hitchhiked. He rode a tramp on the trains and boxed in Navy and.
So I read. We're pivoting for a second, but I read "Education of a Wandering Man," which is his memoir. I read that when I was backpacking Europe for 3 months.
Oh, perfect.
So it was just like a great read. I'm on a train, and
Yeah.
I'm really embracing, exactly what you said, like his lifestyle of kind of like go out there and learn and be an adventurer, which I think is a lot like wrestling.
Yep.
So you've been coaching at BLS for quite some time. If we look around the city of Boston, you are the most experienced coach we have in our city. Coach Lewis over at Excel.
Correct.
He coached with you. Coach Josh at BLA. He was one of your athletes. And then Jose, who started the BLA program, he was one of your athletes too, correct?
My first year at Boston Latin, I believe, was his senior year.
Okay.
Yes.
That's awesome. So you've been mentoring in promoting the sport and getting people to love the sport. So if I'm going to look towards the future of coaching in Boston, maybe I'm looking at, a future Division III national champ who's going to come back and hopefully be involved in the city, Quinn?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
I'd love to come back home.
That's awesome. Quinn, so what's something that Coach Gibbons has said to you a lot, or what's something that's like one of his catchphrases in the season?
One thing that absolutely just rings out in my head whenever I think of Coach Gibbons is just have fun, be great. Like, I can't even think of how long he's been saying it. I mean, probably since my 8th grade year. Became a big thing. It's on stickers now. It's like, I think one of my buddies, Dave Snape, he has I think it's a sticker on his headgear. It says, have fun, be great. I think it just encapsulates, like, just how much he wants us. I mean, not necessarily to win, but, to succeed in our own ways. And I think that makes wrestling so much more fulfilling if you're not really wrestling exactly to win a big title, but instead to, just better yourself, because really it's the matches you have in your own head,
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the really interesting things about our sport is you can compete and be really focused on the wins and losses of it and really get in your own way sometimes. But have fun, be great kind of helps you bypass that piece of it, right? Like, let's have fun. We're doing this because it's fun. So, Coach, what does a BLS wrestler look like? What does having fun? Because I know Quinn, he started as a 7th grader for you, right?
Yeah.
I think a Boston Latin wrestler looks like a Renaissance man or a Renaissance woman, right? Hopefully we get kids that, are excited about school. They like to learn. They probably also play maybe an instrument. Quinn plays the guitar. He did the national anthem before wrestling matches, before a basketball match.
Absolutely one of the coolest things I've seen.
Right.
You play the national anthem, and then you go throw someone on their head.
It's always fun.
I remember I made a sales pitch at the Varsity Banquet Award years ago, kind of trying to recruit the parents there. I said, your kids can be smart and tough too. And, I heard one dad laugh, like he got it. He understood. But honestly, hopefully a Boston Latin wrestler is a well-rounded kid. And, I think of the kids from Chinatown, kids from West Roxbury, kids from Rosendale, kids from East Boston. Now it's all pockets of the city as well. So they're coming from different angles. But it's probably one of the greatest places to coach in terms of the kids that are there. They're city kids. It's a kind of a new, like you said, not many of these kids have wrestled before until they arrived at Boston Latin. So it's kids who want to kind of try something new. Hopefully, maybe I had them, or they had me as an 8th grade teacher, and they liked the class, and they liked the vibe of it, and they kind of want to hang out a little bit more. And I try to sell wrestling, but I try to do more of a soft sell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hit them over the head too much because it's not fair to the kids that don't want to wrestle. It's not fair to the girls that don't want to wrestle. But it's still just English class.
Yeah.
But the theme's there.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's it like building a program that every year produces winners? You consistently have people placing at state, making the state tournament, and placing at the all-state tournament. You have a number of your athletes who have gone on to wrestle at college. And like, what is it like building a program like that when most of your wrestlers don't start until 7th, 8th, or 9th grade? Because
we were the bad news bears in the beginning. We really were. A lot of forfeits, got beat up a lot. You do modify maybe some of the things that you do show. It's one of the reasons I think we jumped right into the fireman in the cradle in week 1. Yeah. We're looking for points, and we're looking for success early. We're looking to build that lead. I made friends with, I knew Bobby Blybe. I made friends with Parkway Wrestling, and I would try to get to those younger kid classes, and I'd wear Boston Latin, and I'd go to their breakup breakfast, socials or award nights, and just kind of be available if anyone had any questions and wanted to talk, bit by bit. So it's honestly, it's that village mentality. It was not just me. But I do the old school things. I would kick the 7th grade hallway. I'd go up there and just kind of kick some tires and kind of walk around and try to get to know faces. And I coached freshman football for years. I've done the weight room at Boston Latin. I've always tried to find a place for these kids to work out in the spring, summer, fall. It's been at the Police Academy in Hyde Park. It's been at a tiny MMA gym in Dedham. It's been at L Street in South Boston. We would get trucks and bring wrestling mats over there. Just whatever I could do, I guess. Whatever I could do until my kids arrived. And then some of that energy waned a little bit. And by then, some of the pieces were already put in place.
Yeah, because you have kids who are wrestling now as well as playing other sports.
3 of the 4. We're
That's
hoping
awesome.
for the prodigal son to return, but 3 of the 4.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
And also, speaking of fatherhood and congratulating a wrestler, you mentioned Coach Bly And Declan's going off to wrestle at Harvard next year. So
Correct.
giving a shout out to the two of them and their family, because that's also incredible. Now,
Incredible.
yeah. And Quinn, you know Declan quite a bit because you've trained with him a lot, right?
Yeah, actually, I got much more acquainted with him this season. I think we kind of formed a really good bond. While he was going to prep nationals, I was getting ready for all states. So we kind of had a good little partnership going there. And then even when he was done, he was really pushing me for New England's as well. And
Declan drove down to New England to practice with Quinn, before the tournament.
yeah,
That's awesome.
He's a great kid. Very lucky to have had him as a resource just to, train with and, get some extra reps with on Sundays and, do
And if he's
everything I can,
listening, just want to remind him the last time we wrestled, they took him down.
That's good because I see how big he's getting now, and I'm always wondering, can I still take him down? So maybe I still got a chance.
Yeah, he's got to be 75 now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he was at the tournament we had last weekend, and he helped out. He was volunteering and helping out, and that just goes to show his character as well as just like the character of our wrestling community, not just in Boston, but I just think in general, like the wrestling community is something special. Quinn, what was it about the wrestling community, or maybe about wrestling, that got you to stick with the sport?
I have to say, like wrestling, I obviously, I played soccer and I wrestled in 7th grade, and then 8th grade I was like, you know what, like screw soccer. Like I think I want to, do club for the fall and, maybe get better for 8th grade, right? But then I think going into 9th grade, I became slowly more familiar with Beat the Streets, and then going into 10th grade, I think Beat the Streets is honestly what really solidified, I realized there was a community in Boston besides just Boston Latin, because I think it's all just about broadening your scope and realizing how many levels there really are. When I was in 9th grade, I made it as an alternate to the state tournament, and, I realized, there's so many better wrestlers than me, and it's like finding more and more people, more and more like bodies to push you in the room. It's just like, finding out that there's actually like a really great community in Boston for what I wanted, just hit really well.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I'm excited about you going to Case, is because you have a former teammate who's up there, Alex, AGB. Was he one of the reasons why you made that decision?
Definitely. He definitely played a big part in it. I think there were a lot of advantages to Case. It's a great school academically. They have a great nursing major, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, AGB, he was a huge help in the process. I think he got me introduced to Coach Shapiro. And, he definitely talked me up a lot, so I was very happy to get that help from him, he's just been a great captain, great mentor. I'm very lucky to have him going into college.
And he still follows Boston Latin. He knows the
He
stats
does.
better than I do.
Yeah.
He does. And I have no clue how many wins I've had as a coach, which no clue, but you could text AGB right now and he would tell you how many wins Quinn has, how many wins his brother has, how many. We knew that Ronan Miller had 99 wins and didn't hit 100, right? Because AGB kept those stats.
Yeah, that's crazy. And he's a huge supporter and advocate for wrestling in Boston. He's going to be involved with Beat the Streets again this summer, and I'm excited that Max is going to be around and get to wrestle with more of our Boston guys. And I'm excited that we're just building a pipeline to Cleveland,
Yeah.
And I'm excited as I say I say my prayers that the Angels kind of drop off my replacement coach one day. AGB might be coming home right around that time,
Keep the firemen alive.
Right. Well, it gets tricky because Ray and I get up there, and my kids are getting older. But you want to find someone, as we talk about mentor, we want to find a younger coach that can kind of join the staff. And it doesn't mean they got to do it our way, but at least they can kind of learn how this program's been running. And we see that a lot in high school sports. A new coach can work. A new coach cannot work.
Yeah.
And often I think if that new coach isn't maybe kind of connected to the program and doesn't know its history, doesn't know the culture, doesn't know really the who's who of, it can be difficult.
Yeah. And you'd hate to see, because you do see it, you see programs kind of fall flat and disappear. And, you know, you went from growing up and they were constantly like a thriving program and then they just disappear. Like, what happened over there? And a lot of times because like a very iconic coach left and it's like big shoes to fill and nobody was ready for it or nobody came in with that understanding of what they had. And that he knows all the stats, like that's a big plus already too, because carrying on the history is super important. And we're going to talk in a little bit about history here in Boston because you won the Peckham Award this year. And obviously any chance I get, I love to talk about Peckham, but
I slept at his house for 1 week.
really,
Yeah.
he was an intense guy.
Yes.
Everybody from Emerson who tells me about him says he was like a very intense guy, but also like you, a reader,
Great
and
storyteller.
a good storyteller. Yeah, he had those characteristics.
And he didn't decide. I think he didn't decide he was going to be a wrestler like later in life. He came to the sport a little bit later. But no, he ran a camp out of his garage, and you slept above the garage, and you ate at his kitchen table, and it was good.
Yeah. His wife. I've heard good things about his wife and her support for the wrestling community as well. On the topic of community and supportive, mothers and wives, you have AGB's mom who is very and Brian, her husband, are very involved parents. And I think any chance I get to give them a shout out. But what's it like having parents that are super engaged like that? Because I'm always trying to get our parents from our other teams to be that level of engaged because it carries so much.
And it's funny, there's still coaches out there that would rather kind of keep parents always at a distance, and I don't, it doesn't make sense. You have an asset, you have an ally, they're invested in their children more than you are as their coach. I mean, and we kind of forget that those parents are the ones been driving those kids to club, been driving them to tournaments, and now they're giving them to you, and they still want to be part of that. So it's a partnership. We've been blessed to have Max and AGB's parents helping us, and it's also great as a coach. And it happens a lot when you have parents that you don't cringe when they come over because they don't want to just talk about their kid or they don't want to complain about the rep. They are great parents when they come over. It's a great conversation, and they've been so helpful. I give them a shout out as well at every varsity banquet that we have the best parent liaison from any team. And I'm glad that Max is only a freshman because it makes my life a lot easier. They're almost our communication guru.
Yeah, she does a great job at, taking care of the social media, and which is so important because the kids, they want to share what they've been able to do, and having someone who's like promoting and posting what's going on in the program's awesome. Connecting all the dots, tying in the comms with like stuff that Beat the Streets can come in and help support with. Communicating with the middle school families when we want to take them to tournaments.
And being hyper organized and tech savvy, and it's been great.
Yeah.
And then Brian obviously films and does a YouTube page, and
I think that helps so much. Just like being able to analyze your film, and you'll look at film too. I think it's just such a great resource that I feel like maybe not all teams have.
And it's funny. I still wonder, Brian films, and yet I still see kids passing their cell phone to another teammate to film the match at the same time. And I'm thinking wasted energy and wasted focus and just, it's already being filmed.
That's for the clips. They want to get the clips there.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's, you're right, though. That is such a huge advantage. I didn't have that growing up. I think that's one of the reasons why wrestling is getting so much better is because there's so much access to technique or critiquing your matches and stuff like that. I mean, Quinn, what's your process in that? Do you watch film? Do you watch your film consistently?
Yeah, I watch my film. I watch, much better wrestlers than me. I watch their film.
But we also had a talk with Quinn about maybe being frugal with some of his clips because Quinn's pins with so many highlights, and we'd be at tournaments, we'd hear, dads and coaches screaming, "Don't tie up, don't go," and we think we were letting too much toothpaste out of the tube to people figure out what was going on.
I don't know. I think that might have just been echoing across Massachusetts. This kid likes going upstairs.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't tell which one it is, but yeah, I think analyzing my own film, I think just analyzing where I felt weak in a match, maybe, just like a wrong step here or there, maybe I should, be a little more condensed in my stance, something like that. Like maybe don't reach out so far. Just really small things just to kind of work on next practice, maybe could have done something in this position, that position. So I think just kind of taking those things, reviewing the match, because, when I wrestle, it's like it feels like I just black out, and then, I'm wrestling in positions, I'm putting in effort, but at the same time, it's like I don't really think, I just kind of go,
Which is good.
It's good, yeah. But
I'll walk over to Brian when he's filming, though, if something happens, and kind of try to be the marker with a vocal.
Yeah.
Like right here, so when those kids are watching it, they can hear me. I haven't watched as much film the last couple of years. I remember, there was an app before Brian, and you could break it down. And I came home from a quad to watch the quad. And my wife looked at me like, "You're kidding me, right? Like, you're now gonna do it all." I'm like, and I'm clipping and writing, and so now I try to be, better with my, watching film when we need to.
Yeah. Time is finite.
Yeah.
It's hard as a coach because we put so much into the sport, and it's not for the paychecks, right?
Correct.
Like we do it because we truly love and care about it. So yeah, I find myself doing the same thing, as like spending a lot of time like sending a little clip and say like this spot or that spot, and it's like, okay, let's save this for the 30 minutes after practice.
Correct.
But that's funny that, because Quinn, if I had to coach against you, I mean, you are a dangerous wrestler. It's from certain positions especially, right? So I would try to prepare for that. But we're going to cut to a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about how your dangerousness carried you this postseason, because I remember I talked to you over at Excel, and I was like, "You're a dangerous guy, man. You can score points from anywhere." So real quick break, and we'll come back and chat more. Remember, you are on WBCA 102.9 FM Boston, Boston's community radio station, and this is the Camp Show.
Not making excuses for myself like I did last year. So I remember I got home after the first day of state, so it wasn't that late, so I threw a movie on, and I put Vision Quest on, so I was like, hey, it's time, it's my next wrestling match, it's the biggest one of my season, so make it count, so it was, I felt good going to second day. I was getting ready for the match, I was like, my little guy, Max, AGB's brother, little hype man, he was like next to me on the side, he was saying, "Hey man, just be ready, I was just in my zone, I was just ready. He took a bunch of videos of me, and I'm still just sometimes I look through my camera, I'm looking through, and I'm just thinking of what was even in my head, and I'm I don't think I was thinking of anything. I was just, the actual match starts, I wasn't wrestling scared, tired of wrestling scared at that point. I wrestled the kid twice. I wrestled him sophomore year twice. I got pinned in the first period both times. Once at the state tournament, once at all states. So, I know how the kid wrestles. Then, he took me down, I think got 2 sets of back points, but, I just remember, I was, out pretty much, out of bounds. I remember my head was, I was pretty much pinned. I'm surprised the ref didn't call it, but I just knew, if I just kept fighting for, one more second, I'll know that I tried that much harder. I was thinking, I had a lot of time on my back. I was probably on my back for a straight 30 seconds. And, I was just thinking, I won't be better than I was sophomore year if I give up now.
What was the score when you hit your takedown?
So I ran back to the center after his, so I think it was 11-0.
First period.
Yeah, first period. Probably a minute left, and then I hit a standing reversal somehow. The ref scored it. I had like a Merkel or something like that. Yeah, and then he runs out of bounds, so it was 12-2. Gets to stand up. So we start back in neutral. He goes in on his high crotch, and then I catch him and double overs. And he's kind of, he seems a little stationary, like he's like kind of waiting, like prey, waiting to get caught, and it's like I try my inside trip, which just works really well on a lot of high level guys. That doesn't work, and I have those double overs, and I feel him pressuring into me, and I'm like, oh, like I can hit it. So I hit the probably best headlock of my season, land straight on his back. I'm like, okay, like I have this kid, it's like you gotta go in for the kill at that point.
The place went bananas.
I bet. Yeah.
I went bananas.
Yeah, you had people like
That was the
rising up
time
out
I
of the
did try to
stands.
do, mental Jedi tricks on the ref. He's been. Just call it. Call it. Because you also see the clock ticking. And I think it was about 18 seconds left.
It was
And,
really short time.
a guy that can get 12 points on Quinn in the first period could also be a guy that can get 12 more points in the second period. So we have him. Let's do it. Practicing for All-State, bumped into the Milton High assistant coach, different division, Boston Latin's Division 1, Milton High's Division 2. And he said, Coach, it was like Paul Revere riding through the night screaming. Word traveled so fast. Quinn beat the Haverhill 215-pounder, who, funny thing was that was State at All-State, had dinner with his brother, who's an assistant coach at Haverhill High, and Tim Waller, so Matt's brother. And it's just funny that, we sat there and we had a beverage and we talked about it.
Yeah.
And I've known Tim for a while as well, Haverhill coach, and I felt Tim's pain too. Like I'm like, I've been there too. Because it was a beautiful. Upset's an interesting word. Quinn was. Hey, he won in that match. He was the better wrestler at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see that coach. The expectation was that was not in their cards. That was not part of their plan at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in the D3. I was at D3 states, and word traveled fast. Yeah. It was like everybody was talking about it there as well. Yeah. That's awesome. And those type of matches will stick with both of you forever, right? Like you're going to remember that moment for as long as you live, which is awesome. And the feeling you felt.
Bond,
the feeling you felt when you took that chance and you went after it and you were able to do it, like it really shows you can do anything, right? Yeah. Which is an awesome feeling. So, man, yeah, and that sets the path for a lot of other Boston wrestlers to also be able to believe in themselves that way.
It'll be, the coach anecdote for the next 10, 15 years as, someone's worried about wrestling the tough kid. We have now the Quinn story. It becomes part of that, oral tradition of, a lot of the things, experience is the name we give mistakes, but experience is also the name we give, like lessons, and we'll have the Quinn lesson. It can be done. You don't have to go in there and you could be losing 12-0 to the number 1 seed at the state tournament and still win.
Yeah. The Quinn story, the legacy.
Right.
How's it feel knowing a lot of Boston wrestlers are going to hear that story? And, I always tell our kids when they're working with the youth and the middle schoolers and younger kids, like, they look up to you a lot. You are the coolest kid to them for helping them out right now and for winning and being a good wrestler. Like, they look up to you so much. So you have a big responsibility just how you're behaving in this space. How's it feel knowing that all these Boston wrestlers who are growing up, the 7th and 8th graders on the BLS team right now, are going to be thinking that, like, I'm chasing Quinn's legacy now?
It's extremely fulfilling. I'm like absolutely blessed to, be that guy, like there were guys for me like that were like that, and that set that crazy example. Eric Power, obviously, like I wanted to, not just live up to it, but I wanted to, make something of myself. I want to make a name for myself. So knowing that I've left that in Boston is just like such a great feeling. And, like obviously the way it goes for all the young kids, like I was that way once.
I think my little kids want to be Eric Power too.
Well, 2 Peckham Award winners. I mean, they have good role models to look after, and it's kind of like, why I emphasize the Peckham stuff a lot is because he was that for a long time. Like he was building people like that back in the 70s and creating wrestling in this area. And seeing it was like Eric and you who have won that award is very much not a coincidence. Like that's a stamp of what's happening, what we're trying to do in Boston, what he was trying to do, growing the sport in this area. So, yeah, Eric wrestles where?
Roger Williams.
Roger Williams, correct, right? Yeah. So not too far away down in Rhode Island.
Beautiful area.
Yeah. Maybe you'll see him at the NCAA tournament.
That's our goal. We always talk. We say, hey, like, let's wrestle in the NCAA finals. Let's do it. Like,
I would love that. That'd be really cool. And then we'll see Sam Silva and AGB wrestling in the NCAA finals.
Oh, yeah.
And then maybe Javon and Jarmani. We'll get a bunch of Boston matchups.
It's funny, we mentioned that, that we practiced together before All-State or State. We also practiced together often before the first competition, that opening Saturday. And, Boston has been growing in the, the phrase, ships rise with the tide, right? Yeah. But I remember thinking there's this old proverb, I don't know where I heard it, but it kind of reminds me of that opening Saturday practice with, 4 or 5 Boston teams. It's, me versus my brother, me and my brother versus my cousin, me, my brother and cousin versus the world, and depending on what day it is, it might be us versus the world or it might be us versus each other, right? And so at some point it might be Eric versus Quinn, but until then it's still Eric and Quinn versus everyone else.
Yeah. No, I love that, and especially where I'm at, like my role in the summertime, like really getting these guys training together and working together and doing programming together, traveling together. You see BLA, JQ, BLS, Excel, like those friendships happening, and they're excited to see each other in the season. And then that dual meet happens in the season. So I wasn't planning on asking this, but you guys have had a history of beating up on the other Boston teams. This was the first year there was like...
So we lost to BLA this year, and hats off to Josh Tran. Yeah. It was a good duel. They came ready. They were a little bit older than us. Josiah Quincy used to beat us up. Josiah Quincy, I will, in terms of Boston history, so just Hungway Spicer, I coached a kid, Ben Spicer, who went on to be the captain at Trinity in Connecticut and went on to become a wrestling coach in Denver, Colorado, and I think he even got, Denver Public School Coach of the Year award one year. Ben Spicer's mom is one of the, if I'm wrong, but I'm close, one of the co-founders of Josiah Quincy Upper. And so she saw what the sport was doing for her son. Her daughter was also the team manager. I think she robbed Peter to pay Paul, figured out how to get wrestling in that auditorium in that old building. And JQ, they didn't have hockey. I don't think they had basketball. They didn't have football. It's a tiny school in the Chinatown South End. And coincidentally, they had 2 coaches who worked at the building. Malcolm Mitchell, who wrestled at BU, and Tim Kelleher. I think it's Kelleher wrestled at Bridgewater State, and Malcolm was Tim's high school coach. So you have 2 coaches who've known each other forever, both college wrestlers. And so JQ was dominant in the beginning. And I started seeing a new kind of kid showing up to my practice room, like these cool kids that were hanging out with JQ kids that like, oh, wrestling's cool now. Yeah. It wasn't just maybe the football kid that wanted to be, to be a better football player, so he was wrestling. These were kids that like, some tough kids from JQ were kicking butt, and we were getting, their cousins, or we were getting their friends. And so when JQ started doing well, we started doing really well, and because of them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you kind of I see it with the new kids that start getting dragged into practice, right? Who their friends are. They're, oh, this kid's a cool kid. I'm trying to come in and wrestle. Yeah. They did jujitsu, and now they're wrestling, and now their friends are coming into wrestling, and
now they're tucking their sweatpants into their socks.
Yeah, or they're cutting their sweatpants.
Yeah, they're cutting them now.
Yeah, it's funny watching kind of the development of like a middle school wrestler, just from because I was always, not to toot my own horn, but I always was like trying to be like the cool looking. I was like Max, you know.
Yes.
I was like Max, like I was always kind of the swaggy little high schooler.
Shepard, I gelled my hair before wrestling matches. I wanted to look fresh.
Yeah, you look good. You know,
Yeah.
you look good, play good type of attitude, right?
Correct.
So the development of like a middle school wrestler who doesn't know wrestling swag, they don't know like
Correct.
the look. You know, they got their singlet up and they just got shorts or sweats on and they're walking around the singlet.
Yeah.
And then as they're in the sport longer, they start like, oh, that kid over there, he's doing this cool thing. You know, like, oh, the cool guys they're wearing their gear this way.
And an ecosystem kind of evolves.
Yeah. It's evolving fast now. I mean, maybe it's just my age. It's trying to keep up with it.
Social media is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
There's a lot more wrestling.
Visual, you can
Yeah.
see it. I mean, and I love the wrestling, the warm up and the polo. Like I
Yeah.
actually never. To me, though, I'm a fan of that for some reason. It just reminds me of being a preppy kid from Milton growing up, and you go to Milford and the entire team is kicking your butt and they're wearing polos as they warm up.
David Snape's been doing that a little bit.
Yeah,
I like that. I think
it's not practical. They have buttons.
not
It's like
practical.
zippers on jeans, or zippers on sweatpants when you wrestle. It's not
Yeah.
practical.
And you really need a material that can like absorb sweat.
Yeah.
You know, not all polos can do that. Yeah, it's funny.
Our assistant or associate head coach Ray Berry swears that he wants to coach every day in golf pants.
Coaches have their look too.
Yeah.
Like coaches, like you with your book on the side. Other coaches, or maybe like a guy's wearing a vest zip up all the time, or a ball cap. You know, it's just like they're athletes. It kind of trickles on just like that. What do you think?
There's always the coach that wears shorts no matter what the weather.
Yeah, but you see that a lot in Ohio. It's crazy. What do you think is the BLS look? What's your look, Gibbons?
Hair combed, shirt tucked in, belt on, no jeans on, no jeans at competition, Adidas sneakers.
Okay,
Yeah,
little clean cut.
yeah,
Nice. Yeah, I mean I think that's part of the mentoring job as well. You know, is like how you show up every day, not just how you dress, right?
Yeah.
But like what's your attitude every day. And that's something I take really seriously. Is like I need to give my absolute best as much as possible around these kids. And, you know, I'm human. We all make mistakes, right? But does that wear on you as a teacher, as a coach, trying to show up as your best every day, or is that just the wrestler in you?
I try to show up to practice every day and give it 100%. Teaching, sometimes I'm driving in and I'm thinking about what I'm doing in the car ride in. I love to coach. I like teaching.
Yeah.
If I win the lottery, I'm still coaching.
Uh-huh.
I might not still teach. I sometimes tell my 8th graders, guys, I'm a wrestling teacher. I'm a wrestling coach who loves to read books. That's who you got. I'm not one of the teachers that knew when they were a little kid that they wanted to become a teacher. I moved to California after college, English major, and I'm originating loans. I bought a surfboard before I found an apartment, got a mountain bike. Loved it, but also the 40, 50 hours in the cubicle I wasn't wired for that. And
Yeah.
it's funny, I don't even know if I wanted to get into coaching as much as I wanted to go back to wrestling. And then coaching's just a logical, step. So I left California for 2 years, and I knew I had an in education. My mom was an educator, so she had people I could reach out to, and but I got into education because I wanted to get into coaching.
Yeah, I think that's something about this sport, maybe more than other sports, that kind of calls you in. It really calls you in a lot. And I hope we can continue to we're growing our Boston youth wrestling base, right? And, we have the Quinns of the world who are going off to school, or maybe they're staying local, and that they can continue to stay involved, right? Because the sport is like that, more so than other sports. I think it's important to like get back and volunteer or contribute in that way. I mean, it really makes what we're trying to do with Beat the Streets go around. Is like the more bodies in the room who have leadership capabilities, like really helps a lot.
Correct.
If you love the sport, you should get back and be engaged in it in some way. I think I found a weird way back into wrestling, and I'm grateful every day. Like those the tough days, like I'm gonna go run a wrestling practice after 2 practices after this, right? Like I'm so grateful for that. Like, I have to be grateful that I get to do that. You know, the admin stuff can get kind of hard.
Correct. But
Yeah.
you can, I mean, it's amazing how quick you can transform when you cross that threshold and get on that mat and put
Yeah.
the sneakers on.
For sure.
One thing I struggle with a little bit as I just get older, I mean, is just feeling sore at practice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then trying to now modify how I coach. I was teasing Quinn and Max. They came to club practice in Canton a few Sundays ago, and I said, I can't wait for next year where the best wrestlers are like 150 and 130 and 120, and I'm not being asked to work in with a 215-pound animal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that will give me a little bit more stamina each practice because I won't be as banged up as much.
For
Yeah.
sure.
We're just like, hey, Max, show this. You know, and you talk it through. You know.
Quinn, how often were you wrestling coach?
This season, I mean,
I think more this season than last.
more this season than last, definitely, because I would go with Ethan a lot last year, but this year, main drill partner was Langdon, right? Yeah, so
But we always scouted. There'd be times when
Yeah,
Declan
yeah.
Bly would come in.
Yep, I
We
would
have
always-
Coach Nick.
Yep.
We'd partner with Excel a few
Bennett.
times, and Bennett, who's CIT with you guys.
Yeah, he's one of my coaches. Yeah.
And I was always good for 4 or 5 45-second goes.
yeah,
live,
we'd always scrap. It was
But
good.
it was hopefully one of the more intense 45-second minute goes you'd get.
That's tough, right? Because you don't, as a coach, you don't really warm up either.
Correct.
You just jump in there, and then
Yeah.
so like I'm going through that same thing now, where I'm like I'm not warming up, I'm jumping in, and everybody's giving me their best go, and then the next guy wants to go with me because he wants to try to get a takedown on me or whatever, right? And then the next day I'm waking up, my neck doesn't move well, you know. So that is the interesting thing about the sport, right? Is coaches get in there and they do the sport.
Correct.
Right, it's not like in football. You don't have the guy wearing pads tackling you.
I think I ran a few plays where I coached freshman football.
But generally, like
Yeah,
the
without
wrestling
pads,
coach,
yeah.
the wrestling coach is like in the room, and
It's what makes it unique in the sense that the relationships that are developed in our sport are different. In football, often, the coach is the general, and, and there's almost that chessboard kind of, there's a distance, right? You're on the sideline and they're wearing helmets and the play's being called in and he's kind of dictating the play and, wrestling, a bond does occur because you're beating up the very kid you're coaching, right? Or you're letting him beat you up at times to get better.
Yeah.
You are trained together. That's why sometimes I think wrestling hurts emotionally at the end of the season.
for sure,
Because physically what you put in to the kids, you physically put in, pain. You put in work. You put in labor. You worked out with those kids. And so sometimes when something bad happens, like, ringworm keeps a kid out of a tournament or they get injured or, they really, there's a bad call in the last 10 seconds and they lose the match. And you feel it on such more visceral level, I think, because you were their partner
yeah,
in that process. You weren't really, telling them what to do. You were doing it with them.
yeah. I mean, leading up to the state tournament this year, and we'll have Jarmani and Sam on here, but Jarmani, I think, is an incredibly talented wrestler, and the growth he's made the last couple of years. And he had a tournament. He placed the state, but didn't reach his goals, and it was hard.
Yep.
We were both crying after the tournament, and leading up that week of practice, like I'm doing one-on-ones with him over at Emmanuel, and the psychological piece, like hyping him up, and we're training, we're doing all this stuff, and that stuff does break your heart. It does hurt. Yeah.
There's a type of weather that late March is like, and I say to Ray, like, this is the kind of weather that you and I walk to our car after the tournament. Doesn't always end with the New England champ, right? Only a couple of coaches, and so usually there's this walk and a long sigh and
quiet,
it's quiet, and you're like, all right, I'll say see you in 2 weeks at club, but like, it can end with a whimper. It doesn't. For very few people, it ends with, it's cliche, but that's obviously why it's not always end result,
Yeah.
right? It's the process.
You said this year, wrestle as long as you can.
Correct.
Like wrestle, the postseason's long. Wrestle as long as you can. That's the focus.
Yeah, we know we want to win. We've kind of taken win out of our language at Boston Latin a little bit, for good or for bad. Just we're competing. We want to win. That's obvious.
Yeah.
But I think when we change that language to have fun, be great, I'm hoping that ultimately we're trying to pull the greatness. We're trying to make that kid as great as he possibly can be.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And that's a different benchmark for different kids, right? And it can look different for different kids. So, for some kid, being great might be 10 and 10. He overperformed it. So have fun, be great.
And on that note, Coach Quinn, thank you very much for being on here. Keep carrying on that tradition, that legacy. I'm excited to watch BLS in the future. I'm excited to watch Case Western in the future. You've been on Camp, the Coaching and Mentoring Playbook. This is WBCA 102.9 FM Boston, Boston's community radio station.